Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another Siser Live. Welcome to another Siser, I'll say a Siser launch, which we're really excited to. But hi, everybody. Let us know where you're chiming in from. Let us know where you're watching us. Let us know what projects you've been doing. Let us know what questions you have, what things that you got on your mind. We want to know all the things. Well, this is a very unique live. As you guys see, I have stripped down the table. Trevor and I have stripped this table down from a heat press like you normally see, to bringing on a lot of papers, and I got an acrylic blank, and I got some metal business card templates. Like, I wonder what all this could be for. Well, I know the cat has been out of the bag for about a week or so now from some of the folks that were pro subscribers that ended up getting these tools a little early, but this is the introduction of two brand new tools for your Romeo or for your Juliet. And we are very, very excited about where we are going, not only with the advancements in the tools in our cutting systems, but also in the software itself. So it is going to be a very, very exciting live. We're going to be doing a couple of things, but we got to make sure that we're covering all of our bases during the course of this video as well. So I'm going to introduce these two brand new tools to you. We're going to get into software. I'm going to teach you also how to prep your environment to make sure that these tools work properly for you. We're going to do some testing, we're going to do some cutting, and hopefully all in all, you guys get to see two really awesome additions to the Siser team. Now, I'm going to bring on a yellow piece of paper just so we're not contrasting too bad with the background, but introducing the Easy Crease and Easy Etch tools by Siser. So these two tools, the Easy Crease, which is identified by two identical tips, and then the Easy Etch tool, which is identified by one singular tip, are two new additions here at Siser that I'm super excited about, and we're about to learn why, because we're just going to hop right in and start doing a project. So Easy Crease tools are typically used for your paper crafting, folding, scoring, stuff like that. Your Easy Etch is going to be used for anything that's etching or scratch engraving. And today we might be doing a little bit of both of these in a couple different projects. So let's dive right in. But first, we need to make sure that we're prepping our environment properly. So on this case, the Easy Crease tool and the Easy Etch tool have a little bit of a variance in cut settings or force settings depending on what you're using. So this particular paper right now that I'm using, I'm just trying to see how many GSM this one is. I don't see it on the label on the back, but this is a little bit thicker cardstock than what we're used to working with. So for something like this, I may go up higher in the range that I give you for the force. Now, we're going to start with the Easy Crease tool to get us started. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just ensure that my cut settings are all set up and proper before I get started. So I'm going to take my cardstock and put it on a 12 by 12 cutting mat. Again, with the Romeo and the Juliet high definition cutters, you do not need to put your material on a mat. But in this case, because we have cardstock where we're going to be cutting all the way through the cardstock to make a fun little card for you today, that is just something that we need to make sure that we're doing over the course of, or just make sure that we're putting our paper on a mat so that we're protecting the back and then we don't have any pieces falling off into the cutter. So anyways, I digress. You guys know I talk a lot, so it's fine. So I'm going to load my mat over into my Juliet, and I just want to simply place, and I'm going to actually change my pinch rollers here. I was doing some testing earlier this morning on both processes. So I'm going to move my pinch rollers back to where they belong, and I'm just going to align my mat in the Juliet, and then I'm going to bring my blade or advance my mat through the cutter so that my blade is where it should be in the appropriate location, down somewhere in that bottom left origin. Now, the first step that we need to do is we need to get our cut settings for our cardstock to be able to cut all the way through. So we're going to do a little bit of testing together. The first thing, I'm going to go ahead and go into the cut settings. Now, I know working with cardstock that I'm sticking around a force of anywhere between like 45 and 50 typically. So we're going to start out at about 40 and see where we are with this particular cardstock. And again, this is the reason why I'm showing you guys the testing of this is because you may have different weights and different materials, different coatings, different finishes on your items that you're going to either be utilizing the Easy Crease tool or the Easy Etch tool. But it's important to at least test to ensure that you have those cut settings for your own environment. You guys already know with the blades, a lot of times with these blades, you may be advancing it a little bit further than what we consider standard, or maybe a little less than what we consider standard. So it's always important to at least test your cut settings. So it looks like here that 40 didn't go through, which I kind of assumed it wouldn't. let's go ahead and bump this on up to, we're going to just bump it up to 50 here, just to kind of bypass that 45, because it's such a micro difference between 40 to 45, but a little bit bigger difference between 40 to 50 as far as the force. So let's go ahead and double check this. So we're not cutting quite through yet. So we're based on what I'm seeing here, probably my blade is not advanced as far as it normally should be. So I'm just going to bump this up a little bit more. And again, this is all part of what you guys should be doing at home too, and just testing your papers, your heat transfer materials, your blank acrylics, your sublimation stuff. Always should be testing just to ensure that we're getting the proper setting. So I think this worked really well. I can see that I can take this whole test cut out. So we're good to go. All right, so we know now, and we're going to make sure, I'm going to write this down for us here. We know now that the cut settings to get through this particular cardstock with this particular blade setup is 65 for the force. So that's what I was able to go for. So I'm going to write that down just to keep it a mental note of it. If you are in Leonardo Design Studio, one of the cool things that you can do on each page is you can drop down the File tab and you can hit Job Notes. And so what I could essentially do for this is I could put cardstock, and then I could put force, then we'll do 65. And I'm going to keep, oh, maybe I should spell force correct, right, Trev? It's not quite, oh, we're almost there. All right, cool. Sorry, the screen's a little bit small for me. All right, so force of 65, and I'm going to keep my speed anywhere from 9 to 12. I mean, it's just dependent on your preference. I keep everything at 10 typically, but I like to give you guys a range. So 9 to 12 for that. So now I have my cut through settings. The next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to go and show you how to load the Easy Etch tool. And I'm going to show you a quick test that you can do to ensure that obviously it's giving you enough of an impression. Now, with the Easy Crease tool, typically what I think a lot of people think is that it's going to give this really, really heavy defined score line in your material. And yes, in a lot of cases it can. However, to be able to get enough of a score in there or a crease in that paper so that you can fold it on over, we don't actually have to put as much force into our cutter or onto the tool or onto the mat or the material itself. We can actually do this pretty simplistically. So the first thing we need to do is we need to load our Easy Crease tool. Now, as you guys can see with the Easy Crease tool, there is no barrier like there is on a regular cutting blade, where it has a little rib to show you where to stop. And the reason being is because materials come in all different thicknesses, but the blades are not retractable, or the tips are not retractable in the Easy Crease tool. So how we're going to load this is we're going to essentially unlock our blade holder, or tool holder now is what we can call it. And I'm just going to drop this tool directly down into the blade or the tool holder until it hits the material. Okay, now from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that tool about 5 centimeters or so, a couple of centimeters above the material so that it's in a hover state. And basically what that means is the tip isn't touching the material, but I'm not making it so far away from the material that I can't actually lock the tool into place and that it won't be centered for me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and do the same exact test cutting that we just did, but we're going to start in a different range. So for the Easy Crease and the Easy Etch tool, the range is anywhere from about 45, and this is a big range, guys. So I understand that it's a big range and it's going to take testing, but it's anywhere from 45 all the way on up to 80 for the force. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just bump this on up, because I've done some testing on this particular cardstock. I'm just going to bump it all the way up to 80, do a quick test cut, which is essentially just going to allow me to see the impressions in the paper. Now, you guys won't be able to see this on camera, but what I'm essentially looking for is I'm looking for the fine line work, or the lines in the paper that have made an impression, but I don't necessarily want to see half of a line, right? I want to see the entire test cut symbol. That means the circle, the t-shirt, and the square, and be able to identify those lines based on where it made the impressions in my cardstock. So 80s worked for us. Again, I did a little bit of testing beforehand, so I kind of already knew that. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up now our blade in the bottom left, or in this case our Easy Crease tool, in that bottom left corner, but I'm going to avoid obviously where I did my test cuts so we don't affect our project. But going back into Leonardo on the job notes, so I can do cardstock there, and then I can do crease tool, and then I'm just putting, again, some notes, and I'm going to spell force correctly this time. and we'll go with 80, and then we'll do for the speed, we'll keep it again at that 9 to 12 range, depending on your comfortability level. Sometimes I've had people actually say to me, hey, this machine runs too fast for me. And that's okay. That's why we have custom speed settings too. So I'm just updating this in Leonardo so I have it. Now that we have loaded in our crease tool, we've test cut with our regular blade and our crease tool, now I'm going to show you how to quickly make a card and add a single score line in that card so that you can kind of take that on and make and create whatever you want with it. So I'm going to go into Leonardo. All I'm doing right now is grabbing a square, or the square tool, and I'm just going to create a card shape. Now, for this card, we're going to do let's do a 5x7 card. I feel like that's kind of a standard card size. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this exactly the way that I see it. Now, most of the time, as you guys know, the shapes come in a fill. I'm just changing this to stroke so that I can see all of my line work as I'm going to add now a crease line. Now, for the advancement of Leonardo Design Studio, we are working diligently on updating the software to ensure that the Crease, Easy Crease tool, the Easy Etch tool has a ton of support behind it as far as settings, as far as for the Easy Etch tool, line fills, and all those other things coming very, very, very soon. But I'm going to show you the simple way to create a simplistic card inside Leonardo. So now that I have my card body created, the next thing I need to do is I need to come down to my draw tools and I need to find the pen tool. And essentially what I'm going to do, and I want to actually go, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here for us so we can see more of the screen. Let's go that way. What is going on here? All right, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick somewhere on the grid here. I'm just picking a couple of lines that I want to hit because I want to make sure that this line is straight. At first, I'm not super worried if I don't do it exactly center of like the body of the card, but simply I just want to put one point and then I want to find that line again and I want to add another point. And then now, as you can see with the draw tool, it'll continue to add points until you right click on the node that you're done with. And then you're going to select done below. But here, let me just zoom out a little bit. All righty. And select done. And now, as you can see, I have a line. Now, here's the reason why I wasn't worried about where it was placed on my card just yet. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and highlight both my card and the line. And I'm simply going to hit the hotkey C and then the hotkey V. And all this is doing is it's centering those two objects to each other. So now, as you can see, I have the body of my card created, and now I also have my score line, which will allow me to add that fold in there with the crease tool. Now, I'm going to change the color of the crease tool. So as of right now, Leonardo doesn't differentiate a crease line to a cut line and then separate those so that you can switch your tool out in between that process. What we need to do is we're going to do it the manual way for now, and in the next software update, this is going to support being able to tell you, hey, your crease is done, make sure that you load in your blade or vice versa on any of the tools that we have here at Siser. But for now, I'm going to change this color to just purple, just an off color of the black, which is my main body of my card. And the reason being is when I go to select both of these and I send those on over to the Send Design menu, I want to stop at the Cut menu first before we get there. Now, typically when we do any artwork, you'll always have your pre-selected selected artwork only for the artwork options, and then the positioning options will always say move each color to the layer, or each layer to the origin. Now, if I hit send on this, as you can see, I have my main card body here, and then when I click on that crease line, it's shifted all the way to the origin. So it's not actually going to crease in the center of where I'm going to cut my card out. So what I need to do before I send anything, I need to highlight all of my design that I want to work with, hit Send Design, and then I'm going to hit Keep Relative Position of each layer, which will essentially keep the body of the card in the same position as well as the line, giving me a much better output and obviously a lot more successful execution of my project. So as you can see, I have the box of my design. Now I have the score line or the crease line dead center in the center of my card. So what we can do first, and what I recommend, or what we're going to recommend here, is that if you're working with a blade and the crease tool at the same time, it's always best to try to send all of your crease design, portions of your design first. The reason being is that that crease tool adds a lot of pressure to the actual paper itself or the cardstock or whatever material that you're creasing. So what we're doing is we're preventing any issues from happening by basically having your cut lines in your material. And then if you score it or you have that crease tool that actually goes over those cut lines, it can have tendency to actually grab part of that cavity or that score line or that cut line, and it could have tendency to rip your page or rip your project, which could end up ruining it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select my line that'll be creased first inside Leonardo. And then what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to actually change from user cutter settings, because we already know what our settings are, but we know now that we have 2 different forces that we'll have to change in between. So the first thing that I'm going to do is deselect user cutter settings. And then I'm going to keep my speed where I'm happy with. 11 is fine for me. And because we're doing that crease that we just talked about, we want to add a force of 80 to that. So I'm going to hit 80 and then enter. And then from there, all I have to do, and actually I'm going to just quickly test cut the cutter, area test the cutter to make sure I'm connected. Looks like I'm connected just fine. Now I'm just going to hit send to cutter. Now this is going to send that crease tool out at a force of 80. Now for me personally, I'm the kind of person that I like to make sure that that score line's in there. So without moving the head of my cutter, without doing anything else, I'm just going to send that on over to the cutter one more time to score that line and make a little bit harder impression into that line. Now, the next steps. We've scored and we have our score line in our material, all right, into this card. The next thing that I'm going to do is select my card file, okay, and without moving the blade head, without adjusting any settings, I'm simply going to now release the Easy Etch tool, and then I'm going to replace it with my blade. Now, as you see, I haven't moved anything. I haven't moved the head of the machine. I haven't moved or adjusted where the material sits. All this is doing is lining that blade back up into the original origin, so I can ensure that when I cut this card, it's going to be centered and cut properly with that crease line that we were able to use the Easy Crease tool for. To note as well, anytime you're adding crease lines, always overshoot your cut lines just a little bit. And the reason being is it just ensures that you get a really nice, uniform, consistent crease or fold in your project, so that when you get to the cutting steps, you don't have any other spots that might bunch up or not fold or crease properly. So with that said, now that everything is set up exactly the same way, all I've done is replace my blade. I can now go into the card making portion, and I can send this on over to my cutter to be cut. But first, what I have to do, see, I tricked you guys on that one. I need to change my force. We're at 80, and although 80 will cut through this cardstock fine, I don't want to add so much force that I'm going to add impressions into my mat and potentially damage my mat. So we're going to go back down to what we test cut what we test cut our blade with, which if I don't remember it, remember we have our notes that are right here for us. I can pop those notes up and say, okay, we got 80 for the crease tool, looks like 65 for cardstock. And so now I can change this cut setting to 65, hit enter, and now I'm ready to send my card or send it over onto my design so that I can cut my card. So just like that, I've been able to not only add a crease line, because I'll take this on off of the cutter. I've added a crease line, which again, you guys, I don't know if you can see it super well on camera, and that's okay if you won't because you'll understand it here in a second, but I also have my main cut line. So now I can take my material off. Ooh, and I'm ripping some of this cardboard too. All right, we don't need any of that. I'm gonna take all that stuff off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a squeegee really quickly to get this card off. And don't worry about any debris or anything that ends up on your mat. Obviously, as you guys know, these mats, you can clean them as well, so there should be easy ways to deal with them after the fact. But I'm just using my squeegee because what I don't want to do is I don't want to bend or mess up this card in any way. And if the squeegee doesn't work, and you have something a little bit thinner, like a credit card or something like that, feel free to use that and just kind of walk it along your cardstock. And the only reason I say this is you guys already know cardstock is made of paper. It has tendency to rip, has tendency to tear, things happen, right? So go ahead and remove that. Perfect. And then now I have a nice score line in, and all I have to do is fold my card over, and just like that, my score line is taken over, my crease line is taken over, and I've just basically made a simplistic version of a card. And I can add anything to this, right? I can design this, add a backer to it, and have a really cool cut file on the front of it. I can say thank you. It can be whatever type of card you want and any type of size. but that is exactly how you use the Easy Crease tool here by Siser and to make something as simple as a regular card. So I'm excited to see what you guys come up with that one. Now, to get us started with this next part where we're going to talk about the Easy Etch tool. Okay, so the Easy Etch tool, currently in software, we are working diligently on building more and more support for this tool. So what I'm going to show you is the way that I have found makes it the easiest to be able to complete your projects with the Easy Etch tool when it comes to any type of blanks, whether that's acrylic or it's maybe a coated aluminum or painted aluminum, as you can see with these like business cards. But I just want to show you some basic tips and techniques that have worked for me. And then later on down the road, once we're ready for the next software update here in the next couple weeks, what we're going to be able to do is show you all of the line fill tools and the advancements to the Easy Etch tool and what you're able to do inside Leonardo Design Studio. So to get us started again, we're back to the prep phase, okay? And what I'm gonna do with this one, because we're utilizing a material that can have tendency to shift because it's under high pressure under the tool, what I wanna make sure that we're doing is I wanna make sure that we're prepping not only our mat and our project properly, but we wanna prep our cutter properly as well. So I know on the overhead, you probably won't see it super well, but all I'm doing is I'm just taking my 2 pinch wheels that are on the farthest to the right, and I'm just going ahead and moving those all the way to the right. And the reason why is I want to have a nice gap for my blank to fit through, because we don't want the pinch wheels to be rolling over big rigid portions of our design, which could jeopardize obviously the integrity or the execution of that design. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to grab my acrylic blank, and this thing's kind of cool because it's like this thing's like a little nightlight, which is fun. At least I think it's fun. And most times with any acrylic blanks, they have some coating or they have a protection on both sides. So make sure that you remove that first. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it on my mat. But here's the part that's going to help us to align this. And I know that the overhead may not pick it up. Trev, is it picking up that blank a little bit? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically taking this blank itself, and let me throw it on the table first so I can kind of show you the anatomy. So this particular one has the main square, which is the portion that we're going to be etching onto, but then it has this little kick out right here, or this little base piece that actually fits into like a nightlight base. Well, what we're going to do is when we account for our design, I'm not going to account for this piece being here. I'm only going to measure around the outside boundaries of the portion of our design, or the portion of our material or blank that will be etched on. Okay, so this is going to be what I'm utilizing to be able to cut onto here. So with that said, I need to know what the measurement is from the top, which in this case it's 5.5. And then I also need to know the measurement this way, which is 5. Okay, and the reason why that's important is as we get into Leonardo here in a second, we're going to actually organize our design page or artboard to match this size so that we can scale our design appropriately. So I'm going to lay it down on the mat, and I typically like to do anywhere in the center, but I like to make sure that I line it up with some grid lines on the mat. And there's an important reason why that we'll get into in a minute. Now, to prep any type of acrylic blanks or anything that you're going to be etching on, again, because they're under high pressure, it's always a good idea as well, not only to use a high tack or a strong bond mat, but also to add a little bit of tape to the edges. This just ensures that your thing is going to stay in place. So I'm going to grab some scissors really fast. We're going to tape down the top of this. Make sure that stays in place. We're going to tape down the bottom of this as well. Make sure that stays in place. And then we're going to throw a piece of tape on either side of this blank too. Again, just to make sure that everything stays in place while we're making this project. So with that, I'm just going to throw another piece of tape here. And again, account for how much or how close to the edge you're going to get in your design. Again, I told you this is 5.5 by 5, but I'm cutting off about 1/4 inch or so on either side. So I just need to make sure that my design is centered appropriately. But we'll show you how to do that here. 1 second inside Leonardo. Now, I've done some test cutting already with the Etch tool, so I'm hoping that we get a really, really cool result with it. But now that we've have our blank prepped, and I know that there's a ton of different mats and things like that that are made for more etching, so you may find those useful, or other tools that may help to hold things structurally in place. So you may find those useful, but nevertheless, what we're going to do is load our material in, or load our mat in, and again, I just want to make sure that that blank is not touching anywhere of those, or anywhere on those pinch wheels, so it doesn't jeopardize what our final result looks like. I'm going to then bring my pinch wheels down, and again, adjust my blade in a way that it's hovering over the blank itself. So I'm going to actually take this blade out. We're going to hover over the blade, and as you can see, especially from that angle, you have a lot less clearance the thicker and thicker materials that you go. So again, there is a variance in settings for force when it comes to etching, whether it's an acrylic blank or maybe a really thin piece of aluminum. I mean, even the thickness difference between a small piece of aluminum to a thicker acrylic, this aluminum can literally like slide underneath it. So we have to account for that. So again, we're going to use the same method that we did with the Easy Crease tool. I'm going to simply drop the Easy Etch tool directly into place until it touches the top of the surface of whatever I'm etching. And then I'm just going to simply pull it up so that it's in a hover state, roughly, again, 2 to 5 centimeters above, or a few millimeters above the actual blank itself. So now I know that if I can push it down and touch the blank, but it's still popping back up, I know that I have enough clearance to clear my blank so that when we send the design, everything's going to be cool. So let's go ahead and jump really quickly into Leonardo, and I'm going to show you the reason why we measured the way that we measured. So I have this really quick Hello Spring sign here in Michigan. It is getting towards the end of winter. We're getting into spring, and we're super, super pumped about it. So I am willing it into existence with this next project. So as you can see, my artboard itself is not the standard 12 by 12 size that you're used to seeing. I actually was able to take it and create a 5 by 5.5 size artboard, which again is the same exact measurement as my acrylic blank. So what I'm able to do now from here is go into Leonardo, size my design accordingly, and then once I'm happy with the size of my design, the next step is simply, again, we want to center it. So we're going to hit that hotkey of C and then the hotkey of V, which will center my design with, in this case, the artboard. So as you saw with the Easy Etch tool, we're centering 2 different elements. With this one, we're just centering our design in the center of our artboard. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is hit Send Design and keep relative position of each layer. Again, we don't want it to move very much. So what we're able to do on this screen is one of 2 things. I can either hit CV. Oh, I got to group everything together first. All right, I can hit CV, which will center it to my artboard here, or if I want, when I go to hit Send Design, I can hit Use Current Mat and Page Location. So once I hit Send here, as you can see, my design is now centered with the mat and remains centered with the mat. So let's hop on back over to the cutter, because what we're going to have to do is line our blade up, or in this case, our Easy Etch tool, to get ready to cut. Now, what I've identified is that the actual motor head or blade head of the Juliet and Romeu, it has tendency to jump. It jumps about 1/8 of an inch high, like north, and then about 1/8 of an inch to the east. Is that east or west? That's west. No, to the east. Yeah, Trev, right? East. To the east. Anybody's. No, it's to the east. I got it. So we're jumping from your guys' perspective. That tool is going to jump a little bit up and then a little bit over. Okay, so what we need to do is kind of account for that. But that is the benefit of Leonardo Design Studio's area test, right? Is because we can not only align our blades, so I'm just going to get a kind of general idea of where my blade goes. And again, I want to account for about 1/8 of an inch in either direction, because we know that it's going to jump up. And then I'm just going to simply go ahead into Leonardo, hit the area test button, which we've shown you a million times, and I'm going to examine and make sure that my design is on center, which in this case, and I'll do one more area test, my design is almost perfectly spot on where I want it to actually etch or engrave in this case. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back into those cutter settings inside Leonardo Design Studio now that we're ready to go, and we have to change that force. So I was able to do some testing earlier today, and again, that max force for the etch tool, I got it all the way up to 80 to where I was like, you know what, this is engraving and this is cutting really well. So I'm going to change that to 80. You know what, actually, let's go above. Let's do it a little bit above. I say 80, but let's go like 90. See what happens. And then I'm going to change my cut setting again, or my force setting to 90. I still have my speed at 11. I can feel free to slow that down a little bit if I feel like I need it. But in this case, it's pretty set it and forget it easy. As you guys can see, we've loaded our mat. We've tested our settings. We're able to load our blade in, or our tool in this case. We've centered it properly. And now it's time for what you guys have all been waiting for. We hit cut. And then we're going to send this on over to the cutter. So the first thing that this is going to do is it's going to start just etching out all of those little bits. Now, I will say the beauty of the Romeo and Juliet is obviously how quiet it is. But when it comes to etching or engraving, sometimes it gets loud. Remember, we're cutting out of plastic in a lot of cases, or we're cutting the coating off of an aluminum blank in a lot of cases. So sometimes that gets a little bit louder, but have no fear. It's obviously the same speed, precision, and accuracy that you get. It's unmatched at that point. So while that's cutting out, I want to go over a couple of things. Again, when it comes to in software, we are working really, really diligently right now on the next software update that not only supports the Crease tool, supports the Easy Etch tool, and it also is going to be supporting a lot of other things inside Leonardo. I'm super pumped about it. So we will have more information once that tool or once that software update is ready. But for the most part, like you guys know, we're listening to you all the time, so continue to send that feedback to us. Make sure that if you have any additional feedback that you reach out to us at info@caesarna.com. This is a great resource not only to get connected with, say, our support team, a member of our staff, but it's also a great place to find resources as well. And make sure that you're always joining us over on YouTube, over on Facebook, over on Instagram, over on TikTok, because we are everywhere. Caesar North America on all platforms. But let's check this out really quick while I know some of those are popping in for you to watch. Let's see what exactly happened to our blank here. So I'm going to just go ahead and remove the tape from each side of my blank. And if you're impatient like me, just grab the blank and rip it off. And just like that, we have a really, really cool etched out design. Now, there is some cleanup when it comes to etching anything. You know, you can get kind of burrs, which is just basically pieces of plastic that, you know, stick up. So I usually take my finger and I can just kind of rub it along the actual design itself, and I can clean up those little burrs really easily, or grab a paper towel or a microfiber cloth, something that's going to allow you just to get all those little shavings off. Yep. And then let's go ahead and here, do you want to put something behind it so you can see it better? Yellow behind it. There we go. So just like that, you can see that we made a really cool design. Can you see that good, Trev? Huh? Yeah. Right there? Nice. So there you go. We got a really cool design. And here's something, a really cool fun fact for you. This particular blank actually comes in a base that has a really cool LED effect. But how do we power this thing on? Well, there's two options that you have. You got batteries, you have USB plug, and hopefully a plug that's close enough, or a little pro tip for you. Go ahead and plug that right into the Juliet. And then I'm going to turn the light off of the Juliet just so you can hopefully see pretty well. Let's go ahead and, got to have the Juliet on to give power to the thing. You guys already know me. You know that I'm a whole thing. All right, so let's go ahead and turn that on. But just like that, now we have a really cool LED sign. Let me turn this light off. There we go. And just like that, now we have a really, really cool LED sign that we've made really quickly with using the Easy Etch. You want me to put it down? Oh, something behind it? Yeah, for sure, Trev. How's that? That look good? Awesome. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to ship this off. If you guys already don't know, our team this week is actually going to be at ISA, the International Sign Association show. We're really, really excited. It's in Orlando, Florida. I'm going to actually send this with the team. So if you go to the booth and you check out our booth, make sure that you ask, hey, where does the Easy Etch sign that Pat made on the live on Tuesday? And then hopefully somebody can pull that out for you, because this actually turned out really, really awesome. I know a lot of times when we get into these projects, you guys already know, I go 9 different directions with them, and half the time we get through half of one. But this turned out really, really cool. And I can also change some colors in there. Does that one look really good? The green is the best? Perfect. All right, cool. Two of my favorite colors. So awesome.